Welcome everyone to this explainer. Let's just jump right in, shall we? Think of this as your foundational architecture class, your Flutter 101. If you already know some basic programming but taking your very first step into Flutter, you are in the exact right place. Today, we are going to master one of the absolute most critical skill you need to build clean professional Flutter apps. We are talking about name parameters and constructors in Dart. So grab a coffee, get comfortable, and let's get started. So first of all, let's take a quick look at our syllabus for today. We got Flutter Foundation, the coffee order analogy, standard versus name parameters, step-by-step constructor mechanics, the most common beginner mistake, and your next practice steps. Section 1. Welcome to Flutter's Foundation. So, you might be wondering to understand why we write Dart code the way we do. We kind of have to understand how Flutter actually draws things on the screen, right? In Flutter, literally everything is a widget. And you build your user interface by nesting these widgets inside one another to create this massive deep widget tree. But that brings us to a huge question. If you're building a complex screen with hundreds of nested widgets, how do you prevent this UI from becoming a totally tangled, unreadable mess? Just imagine trying to track dozens of variables as data flows down this massive tree without a strict organizational system. It would be an absolute nightmare to read and honestly, even harder to debug. And this is where our hero enters the picture, the constructor. So in Flutter, widgets are immutable, which basically means their configurations cannot change once they're built. They need to receive all of their data at the exact same moment they are created. So constructor is simply the gateway function that takes in those arguments and configure the initial state. But, and this is absolutely crucial, how we pass that data is exactly what separates messy code from truly clean architecture. Section 2. The coffee order analogy. Let's step away from the code for just a second to really get a feel for the power of Dart's name parameters. Imagine walking up to a barista and just shouting out this random string of words. Large, yes, no, vanilla, hot. I mean, the barista is just gonna stare at you, completely confused. Is yes to cream, sugar, or an extra shot of espresso? They're confused. In programming, we call this a positional parameter system. The meaning relies entirely on the exact order it was spoken. If you accidentally swap yes and no, well, your morning is completely ruined. In Java, we use this positional parameter system for parameter passing. Passing data without naming, it is just risky and super hard to read. Now contrast that with this approach. Imagine you hand the barista a perfectly filled out order card. Size, large, milk, hot, syrup, vanilla. Instantly readable, right? There is zero ambiguity. And honestly, the best part, it doesn't even matter if you write the milk preference before the size, because every single piece of data has a clear, explicit label attached to it. It's completely immune to accidental swapping. This is the exact concept behind Dart's name parameters, and it is the absolute secret to write scalable Flutter apps. Section 3. Standard versus name parameters. Now that we understand the concept conceptually, let's actually look at the syntax and see how Dart implements its exact coffee shop logic. This brilliantly illustrates the difference. Look over the left side first. This is traditional positional code. Imagine the Flutter scaffold widget, which builds the main structure of the screen, taking arguments like this. Scaffold, abba, body, null. What does that null mean? Is it the background color? The floating action button? You literally have no idea unless you go dig into the source code. Now look at the right side. This is Flutter's actual name parameter code. Scaffold, abba, my abba, body, my body. It's read just like plain English. You immediately know exactly what pieces of data is going where. Named argument totally prevent you from accidentally passing a width or height should go, or a string where an integer expected. It's self-documented code, which is a real game changer. Section 4. Step-by-step constructor mechanics. Alright, so let's look at the exact mechanism of how to write your very own custom widgets using this clean architecture foundation in Dart. There are 3 crucial steps to nailing this. Step 1. Inside your stateless or stateful widget class, you define your final member variables. Remember, widgets are immutable, so those variables definitely should be marked as a final. Step 2. Create the constructor function, which is just the name of the class. And step 3. Actually, scratch that. This is the most important part. You wrap the arguments inside that constructor in curly braces. Those curly braces are the magic Dart syntax that transforms standard risky positional parameters into these beautifully safe named parameters. Section 5. The most common beginner mistake. Now, first of all, I want to reassure that making a mistake is totally normal when you learn in a new framework. But I can save you hours of debugging right here, right now. You write out your beautiful new widget, hit compile, and then suddenly, bam, your screen turns red with this incredibly frustrating error. Something like too many positional arguments. Expected 0 but found 2, like that. You're gonna stare at your screen wondering what on earth you did wrong. You passed the data, so why is Dart complaining? Well, here's the crucial takeaway. When you see that error, it almost always means you missed the curly braces in your constructor, or you tried to call the widget without actually typing out the parameter names. Remember, if you define them with curly braces, you must call them by name. Plus, because Dart uses sound null safety, it really needs to know if a named parameter is optional or absolutely necessary. So if your widget literally cannot function without that specific piece of data, you explicitly type the keyword required right before the variable type in the constructor. So no curly braces or no required keyword, that equals a compile error for sure. Section 6. Your next practice steps. Okay, so now it's time to pivot to the homework page. Theory is great, but active application is where that muscle memory is built. So open up your code editor and practice exactly what we just talked about. First, build a simple custom stateless widget. Make it a custom button or maybe a specialized text card. Second, define a custom constructor in that widget with a couple of final variables like string for title and color for a background. Then the third one, make absolutely sure you wrap those arguments in curly braces. Use the required keyword where needed, and then try rendering that widget from a parent widget. If you do this 3 or 4 times, you're gonna permanently cement your understanding of how data flow down the Flutter widget hierarchy cleanly. And that brings us to the end of our foundational lesson. You now know how to communicate clearly with the Dart compiler, just like handing a perfectly labeled order to a barista. You are officially immune to the messy tangle of positioning parameters. So I leave you with this thought. Now that your architectural foundation is clean and solid, what complex UI widget tree are you going to build first? Get out there, start experimenting, and have fun building with Flutter. Thank you so much for joining me today on this explainer, and happy coding!